All right, so get ready, because today we're diving into some really intriguing claims about the Vatican.
Oh,
You know, those supposed hidden secrets and ancient conspiracies people whisper about?
right, right.
Well, we're going to explore those ideas based on this video we found featuring Billy Carson.
Okay.
He kind of spills the tea
Uh,
on what he believes is lurking beneath those iconic halls of the Vatican.
I mean, it is captivating to think about, the Vatican as like a real life Da Vinci Code type of thing.
Right.
But instead of like, symbols and cryptic clues,
Yeah.
it's miles of underground archives,
Oh, yeah.
supposedly just overflowing with these powerful artifacts and texts.
Mhm.
And they could completely overturn our understanding of, humanity and history.
Exactly. And Carson just dives right in.
Oh, yeah.
He suggests that the Library of Alexandria's destruction, that wasn't just like a tragic fire or something.
Yeah.
He thinks it was a calculated book heist.
A book heist.
Oh,
Wow.
He thinks the Vatican swept the real treasures and then left a few decoy scrolls behind to burn.
Wow. That's a pretty intense accusation.
I know, right? And it gets wilder.
Okay.
He even goes so far as to say that they have Anunnaki artifacts,
Okay.
evidence of like super advanced civilizations,
Yeah.
and even, wait for it,
Okay.
alien bones
Alien bones.
tucked away in their secret vaults.
I know.
I know.
Alien bones.
It's a lot to take in, right?
Yeah, I mean, while the Vatican secret archives are undeniably vast
Oh,
and,
yeah.
tightly controlled,
Yeah.
leading to all sorts of speculation,
Yeah.
the idea of them harboring alien remains, that's definitely a giant leap.
Okay, so maybe the alien bones are a stretch.
Yeah.
But Carson's main point isn't just about what's hidden, but why.
Okay, the why.
Yeah, he claims the Vatican hoards this knowledge to maintain ultimate power and control.
Ultimate power and control.
It's kind of like a real-life Men in Black, but with robes and miters.
Okay, I mean, his argument does kind of echo a pattern we see throughout history, right?
Badly.
Where institutions use information control
Yeah.
as a means of power.
Exactly.
You think about how scientific discoveries that challenged religious dogma
Right.
were often suppressed, or how political dissent was silenced.
Oh, for sure.
So even if we're not buying into the alien bones thing,
Right.
the idea of knowledge as like a tool of power,
Yeah,
that's definitely worth pondering.
definitely. And to back up his point, Carson throws out some pretty wild examples of the information he believes they're hiding.
Oh, really? Like what?
He talks about evidence of lost civilizations like Atlantis,
Atlantis? Oh, come on.
the city that supposedly disappeared under the sea.
Right, right.
He also brings up the possibility of like ancient genetic modification of humans
Okay.
and even ancient texts that completely contradict the Bible.
These claims definitely fall into like
Well,
what we call alternative history or pseudo-archaeology.
pseudo-archaeology. Okay.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, while these theories can be captivating and spark the imagination, it's important to approach them with a healthy base of skepticism.
Okay.
They often rely heavily on like interpretations of ancient myths and legends
Oh, see.
rather than like solid archaeological evidence.
So you're saying we should take these examples with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I think a grain of salt is good in these situations.
I get it.
Yeah,
But even if we don't jump on board with every single claim,
sure.
the idea that information might be suppressed to protect specific narratives
Right.
is still a valid discussion.
Right, absolutely. It makes us think critically about,
Yeah.
who benefits from controlling the narrative
Right.
and the potential consequences of like limiting access to information.
Yeah.
And that's a question that's relevant to any powerful institution,
That's true.
not just the Vatican.
All right, now buckle up for this next one because
All right.
Carson really goes for the jugular.
Okay.
He claims that the Council of Nicaea, that big gathering back in 325 AD,
Yeah.
he says it wasn't just about theological debate,
Okay.
but actually about constructing a very specific version of Christianity, one that served certain agendas.
That's a pretty bold claim,
Right.
bordering on like historical revisionism.
Yeah.
While the Council of Nicaea was undeniably a defining moment in the development of Christian doctrine,
Sure.
claiming it was all like a fabrication
Right.
to manipulate the masses, that's a significant accusation.
He doesn't hold back with the specifics either.
Really?
He claims they cherry-picked and rearranged biblical texts.
Wow.
and even accuses them of promoting things like slavery and financial gain
Really?
within those narratives.
It's crucial to remember that the Bible, as we know it today,
Right.
that was assembled over centuries.
Yeah.
While the Council of Nicaea did play a part in deciding which text would be considered canonical,
Yeah.
portraying it as like a deliberate act of deception. That's an oversimplification.
So while Carson's take on the Council of Nicaea might be a bit controversial,
Yeah.
it does make you wonder about the formation of religious doctrines,
Yeah.
right? And how much human influence might have shaped those narratives.
Absolutely. It encourages us to be critical thinkers about the origins of our beliefs.
Right.
And to question how historical events and power dynamics might have played a role in shaping them.
Now, this next one is a bit disturbing, so brace yourselves.
Okay.
Carson asserts that the spread of Christianity wasn't all about peace and love, as we often hear,
Okay.
but was actually driven by violence and brutality.
Violence and brutality.
He even claims the church used horrific torture devices and throws out a shocking statistic.
Okay, what is it?
80 million deaths over 700 years.
80 million.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Wow.
This is definitely a provocative claim.
Definitely.
It needs to be examined carefully. While the church's history does have periods of violence and persecution, especially during the Crusades and the Inquisition,
Right.
to put a specific number on the death toll
Yeah.
requires a very nuanced historical analysis.
Yeah, for sure.
He paints a pretty grim picture,
Oh, yeah.
describing torture devices like the pop spear,
The pop spear.
which sounds terrifying,
Yeah.
and a triangular pyramid used for unimaginable cruelty.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's pretty jarring when compared to the image of peace and love
Yeah.
that we usually associate with Christianity.
Of course.
While these descriptions are shocking,
Yeah.
it's crucial to avoid sensationalism
Right.
and to rely on solid historical evidence.
Of course.
Oversimplifying complex historical events and assigning blame
Yeah.
without considering the context of the time
Right.
can be dangerous.
For sure.
It's heavy stuff, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But it highlights the importance of critically examining historical narratives, especially when it comes to powerful institutions.
Absolutely. And it raises important questions about how we reconcile seemingly contradictory aspects of history and belief systems.
Yeah.
How do we grapple with the darker chapters of any institution's past
Right.
while also acknowledging the potential for good?
That's a good question.
This challenge isn't just limited to religious history,
Right.
but extends to all aspects of our collective past.
Okay, now let's get into Carson's claims about Jesus himself.
All right.
He suggests that the popular image of Jesus we all know is actually based on Caesar Borgia,
Caesar Borgia.
the son of a pope,
Oh, wow.
a figure known for being ruthless and power-hungry.
Wait, so you're saying Jesus might be like a rebranded Roman prince?
That's what he's implying.
Well, not quite.
Okay.
This claim is rooted in like a long-standing conspiracy theory
Oh, really?
based on the supposed resemblance
Okay.
between some depictions of Jesus
Yeah.
and portraits of Caesar Borgia, but there's no historical evidence to support the idea that the church deliberately modeled Jesus's image on Borgia.
Okay.
Remember, artistic representations of Jesus have varied widely
Right.
throughout history and across different cultures.
That's a relief. But the idea that such a central religious figure
Right.
might be based on someone completely different
Yeah,
is still pretty mind-blowing.
for sure.
What would be the motive behind that?
Well, Carson argues that the motive was to immortalize the Pope's son,
Oh, wow.
essentially turning him into a divine figure.
It's definitely a provocative claim.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how much images influence our perceptions, especially when it comes to religious beliefs.
Right, right.
Even if the Borgia claim isn't true,
Yeah,
it's worth considering how visual representations shape our understanding
yeah.
of historical and religious figures.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, images hold immense power.
They do.
And speaking of powerful figures and imagery,
Yes.
Carson also challenges the name Jesus,
Oh, really?
claiming it's a mistranslation.
Okay.
He believes the real name is Yeshua, or Isis,
Yeshua or Isis. Okay.
which he then links back to the worship of Zeus.
Hold on. Is he suggesting we've been praying to the wrong guy all along?
Let's unpack that.
Okay.
The name Jesus comes from the Greek Isis,
Okay.
a transliteration of the Hebrew name Yeshua,
All right.
while the connection to Zeus is highly speculative.
Okay.
It's true that names carry significant weight in many spiritual traditions.
Right.
Yeah.
Carson even suggests that using the wrong name could make prayers ineffective.
Really?
Like dialing the wrong number when trying to reach a higher power.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Right.
This touches on the concept of names having inherent power.
I see.
An idea found in various mystical and religious traditions.
Right.
Although the linguistic evidence for Carson's claim is debatable,
Yeah.
it does prompt us to think about the role of language and intention in our spiritual practices.
This is already a lot to process.
I know, right?
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Before we move on, let's clarify Carson's own beliefs.
Okay.
He's not an atheist, right?
Correct.
Okay.
He states he believes in a creator,
Uh-huh.
but views the biblical God as a construct created by men seeking power.
So he's basically saying the message has been corrupted by the messengers.
That seems to be his perspective.
Hmm.
It's a viewpoint shared by many
Okay.
who are critical of religious institutions,
Yeah.
but still maintain a spiritual belief system.
I see.
They might be seeking alternative ways to connect with the divine outside of traditional structures.
Wow. There's so much to unpack here.
I know, it's a lot.
What do you think are some key takeaways so far?
It's clear that Carson's claims encourage us to think critically about powerful institutions, the control of information, and the origins of our own beliefs.
Definitely.
While some of his ideas are more speculative than others, they certainly raise fascinating questions about history, religion, and the human search for truth.
That's a great way to sum it up. We'll be back in part 2 to delve even deeper into Carson's claims.
Sounds good.
And explore what evidence, if any, supports his views.
Looking forward to it.
Stay tuned.
All right.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
Ugh.
Last time we left off with Billy Carson suggesting that the biblical God might be a construct created by men seeking power.
Right.
It's like he's saying, forget the burning bush. Look who's holding the matches.
Yeah, that's a striking image. And it leads us to his claim.
What's that?
That even the word God in the Bible might be a mistranslation.
Mistranslation.
He believes the original word was gods.
Gods.
Plural.
Okay.
And that this was intentionally obscured to solidify a specific power structure.
So you're saying the Bible we know could be like a carefully edited version of a much more complex story.
Yeah.
Is that even possible?
Well, this delves into the fascinating world of biblical hermeneutics, which is basically how we interpret religious texts.
Right.
While there are many schools of thought on how to approach biblical translations, Carson's interpretation definitely isn't the mainstream view.
But it does make you wonder, right?
Oh, yeah.
If subtle changes in translation can alter the meaning of a text,
sure,
especially one as influential as the Bible, what else could have been tweaked or reinterpreted over the centuries?
That's a great question.
Right.
And it highlights the importance of critical analysis when engaging with religious texts.
Yeah.
We need to consider the historical context, the different interpretations, and the potential for human bias to influence our understanding.
For sure.
After all, these texts have been copied, translated, and reinterpreted countless times over the centuries.
Carson seems to be advocating for a more personal and direct connection with the divine.
I see.
Urging listeners to do their own research and question everything, instead of blindly accepting what they're told.
That's a trend we're seeing across various spiritual movements today.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
There's a growing interest in ancient wisdom traditions, esoteric knowledge, and alternative spiritual practices.
Interesting.
As people seek meaning and connection outside of traditional religious structures. It's like people are creating their own spiritual playlists instead of just listening to the default radio station.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Right.
But it also brings up a challenge.
What's that?
We've got this mix of historical tidbits, conspiracy theories, and alternative spiritual perspectives.
Right.
How do we sift through it all without getting lost in the weeds?
Yeah, it's tough.
It's like being in a giant library without a Dewey Decimal System.
Oh, exactly. That's where critical thinking becomes our most valuable tool.
Right.
We should approach claims like Carson's with healthy skepticism.
Okay.
Especially when they involve rewriting history.
Yeah.
Or challenging established beliefs.
So we shouldn't just take everything at face value.
No, not at all.
But actually look for evidence.
Right.
To either support or refute these claims.
Exactly. This deep dive is just the starting point for further exploration.
I see.
We can delve into the history of the Vatican, the Council of Nicaea, the evolution of biblical translations, and the development of religious doctrines.
Wow, that's a lot.
There's a wealth of information out there waiting to be discovered.
Right.
if we're willing to do the digging.
I love that. It's not about blindly accepting or rejecting any one person's claims.
No.
But using those claims as a launch pad for our own intellectual and spiritual journeys.
You got it. It's about engaging with these ideas in a thoughtful and discerning way.
Right.
Allowing them to challenge our assumptions and broaden our understanding of history, religion, and humanity's eternal search for meaning.
That's a great way to frame it.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
okay,
what are some key questions we should be asking ourselves?
Yeah, that's a good question.
As we continue to explore these topics.
All right, well, here are a few to ponder.
Okay.
How do power structures influence the spread of information?
Right.
What are the consequences of suppressing knowledge? How do we separate historical fact from interpretation and speculation? And perhaps most importantly, how do our personal beliefs shape our understanding of history and the world around us?
Those are some seriously thought-provoking questions.
They are, aren't they?
It's definitely going to take some time to digest all of this.
I know, it's a lot.
But don't worry, we'll be back in part 3 to wrap up our deep dive.
Okay.
And leave you with a final thought to spark your own continued exploration.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. We'll be back. We've been on quite a journey with Billy Carson and his claims about the Vatican.
Right. Those hidden archives, alternate histories.
Right. And we even pondered the power of names. So let's take a step back for a second.
Okay.
What do you think? What's resonated most with you?
Well, what strikes me is that recurring theme of information control.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Whether or not we subscribe to the, alien bones in the Vatican basement idea.
Right.
The notion that those in power might manipulate information to maintain that power.
Right.
That's a thread that runs throughout history.
That makes you wonder, what stories are we being told?
Right.
And who benefits from those narratives?
It's a great point. It's like we've been handed this giant puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
But some of the pieces might be missing or even purposely misplaced.
Right.
Carson seems to be encouraging us to not just passively accept the picture on the docs, but to really examine each piece and figure out how it truly fits.
Precisely. And that applies not just to religious institutions, but to any entity that holds sway over our lives.
Governments, media corporations, even those algorithms feeding us information online.
It's true. It's everywhere.
If knowledge is power, then the question becomes, who controls the flow of that knowledge?
It's almost like Carson is saying, hey, don't just take my word for it.
Right.
Go do your own research.
Exactly.
He's advocating for a more active and critical engagement with information, especially when it comes to our deeply held beliefs.
Absolutely. He's calling for what we might call informed skepticism.
Informed skepticism?
Yeah.
What's that?
We can be open to exploring different perspectives and challenging traditional narratives without blindly accepting every conspiracy theory that comes along.
It's about finding that balance.
Right.
Between curiosity and discernment.
Exactly.
Being eager to learn, but also aware of our own biases and the potential for misinformation.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the heart of what makes this deep dive so compelling. It challenges us to examine our own assumptions about history, religion, and even the very nature of truth.
It reminds us that the stories we tell ourselves about the world have an enormous impact.
Yes, they do.
On how we see ourselves and our place in the grand scheme of things.
So as we wrap up our exploration,
Okay.
I'd like to leave you with this.
All right.
If traditional narratives of history and religion might be incomplete or even flawed, how do we navigate the search for truth and meaning in a world overflowing with information?
That's a profound question.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a question that requires us to hone our critical thinking skills, be discerning consumers of information, and cultivate a healthy sense of curiosity.
Yeah.
The quest for truth is an ongoing journey.
Definitely.
And maybe the most important step is simply being willing to ask the questions.
Beautifully said. And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave you to continue your own explorations.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes. Thank you.
Into the world of Vatican secrets.